If you're serious about karate, if you are serious about teaching quality karate to quality students, then you need to find a quality location. Invest some money and time into finding the right dojo. Hey guys, welcome back to Karate Over Coffee. I'm your host, Cheyne McMahon, and if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. If you haven't checked out our Karate Over Coffee community Facebook page, jump on there. We do discuss, or some of us anyway, discuss some things that we talk about in the podcast, as well as I put up polls and stuff like that. So make sure you jump on there and have a bit of a gander. But today we're going to be talking about finding the right dojo. What does that mean? What the hell am I talking about? So let me give you a quick background for those who don't know me, a bit of information about myself. My family owned and operated a traditional karate dojo. Side note, I am working on a podcast at the moment trying to define what traditional karate means. But anyway, let's get back to what we're talking about. My father and mother opened a full-time dojo a long time ago. So for pretty much my entire life, it has revolved around karate. So my dad started karate back in the 60s, maybe the late 60s, and opened his dojo, or a branch dojo of the club that we were with at that time, in the 70s on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. His first dojo was at a community hall, and he was there for many years. So we eventually moved to Brisbane because my dad wanted to open a full-time permanent dojo, and he couldn't really do that where we were. It was just not enough people around the area. So that's what he wanted to do, and that's why we moved to Brisbane. Otherwise, we may still be living on the Sunshine Coast. But so after he had a few permanent and sort of semi-permanent dojo. We finally found a purpose-built dojo that actually had a house upstairs and a dojo downstairs. So when we were kids, we were always in the dojo, whether we were training, playing with our friends, or even watching the adults train. I remember watching the adults train and really I wanted to train with them, but had to obviously wait. And in this dojo, downstairs it had a men's change room, like the same size as most Okinawan dojo. That's how huge the change room was. It also, in that change room, it had showers, maybe 4 showers, had a urinal, a toilet, and it was so big we even put a gym in there as well. So we had weights in that dojo, in that change room. So it was huge. There was also a women's changing area, which was still pretty big, but not as big as the men. And then they still had a shower in there as well. So we also had a waiting area for parents, had a little kitchenette, and we had an outside area, like where my dad's office used to be, and there was a bedroom at the back, and a shower, and even a sauna, and one of those old 60s, 70s style saunas, but that we used that for storage. But anyway, the dojo itself, it had 2 training areas, and big windows, big mirrors. It was wooden floor, and then later we put mats on it. But otherwise, yeah, it was like the perfect dojo. We stayed there for a long time as well, over 10 years. But like everything, we moved on. We found another dojo, same suburb. And the great thing about this dojo was it was straight across the road from a McDonald's. So whenever somebody inquired, do you know where McDonald's is? Yeah, it's just straight across the road. You could actually even see us during the drive-through. So yeah, it was great. I loved it. But anyway, I moved to Korea, to Seoul, South Korea in 2004, teaching English. I eventually opened my own dojo there as well, but just outside of Seoul. But that's a whole other podcast. But so in 2006, my dad asked me to come back to take over the dojo. So I did, and I made many mistakes, but now I'm grateful for those mistakes because I've learned so many things. But anyway, the dojo itself was going pretty well, but we had to move. So I think we were there for 10 or 11 years again, in the same suburb. So we've been in that suburb for 20, 25 years. So we did have to move again. So we're conscious about trying to stay in the same area, but we couldn't find a permanent dojo that we could actually afford. So we looked at a couple of community halls, and eventually we found we were renting half a space from a gym, a female gym, and it didn't work out. We both wanted the same things at the same time, and anyway, after about a year or so, we moved again, and we bounced around for a while trying to find the right location, but eventually we were at a couple of schools and stuff like that. And actually during that time, I opened a second dojo on the north side at a rugby union club, at a rugby union leagues club. I was teaching next to like a bar area, and it smelled like stale beer, and you could just get a whiff of that old cigarette smell. So yeah, not fantastic, but anyway, we weren't there for long, maybe 6 months or something, and it never worked out. But anyway, back to the subject at hand. By the way, I am drinking a long black. This is Karate Over Coffee. So I've got my Karate Over Coffee mug. If you're watching on the YouTube, you can see it. If you're listening at home or driving in the car, you can just imagine that I'm drinking it, or you might be able to hear it. Let me have a quick sip. So anyway, yeah, so we bounced around for a while, a few different school halls, shared a school hall with another martial art, which is not fantastic, but I wanted a full-time facility again. So after a few years, I wanted that again. I was sick of sharing, and I really wanted my own space again. So I actually wrote out a few reasons why I wanted a permanent dojo. So I had a look, and I still had it on my old computer. So I had a quick glance, but here's really the reasons. And when I say permanent dojo, it doesn't mean that it has to be a for-profit dojo. The dojo can still be a permanent, but run part-time hours as well. That's what I did initially. So I was still working full-time in a different job, and so, but I did want the full-time facility again. So here's my list. Just a couple of things anyway. So unavailability. Many times you're stuck with whatever days are left from other activities. So if you're sharing at a community hall or a school or church or whatever it is that you're at, bingo's Tuesday night, line dancing is Wednesday night, AA meetings are Thursday night. So you're stuck with maybe Mondays and Friday nights if you're lucky. Maybe Mondays, Saturday mornings, Friday afternoons, Saturday mornings. They're the least popular. They're the least popular time. So and then you're restricted with the amount of people that you attract as well. Mondays for us, or for probably everybody, is always a smaller class than a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because people will still have a hangover of the weekend, whether it's an actual hangover or they've ferried their kids everywhere and they're just tired. So Mondays for us is always a bit smaller, but so the availability at a local community hall on a Monday night is probably still pretty good, but you're just restricted. So I wanted the timetable to revolve around my timetable. I was still working full time, 8 till 5 or 8 till 6, whatever it was. So the karate timetable had to fit around me and my family. It had to be right for me and my young family, so that way I could dictate which days I could teach, rather than what days I had to teach. The other one is another one is the cancelled classes. So at any point, the community hall, the PCYC, the school hall, church, whatever it is, they can cancel the class at any time. You know, if they're on a Wednesday night, if suddenly they remember they've got a bake sale happening Thursday, they may have to cancel the Wednesday night. So that's okay if you've got 10 to 50 members, but if you're running, you know, if you've got 100 members, that's, you know, almost unacceptable. But if you're running a full-time facility, so if you've got your own class times, it's expected the classes are on those allocated days and times. There's just a level of expectation there. Things happen, of course, you know, like COVID, where you do have to close. But we had a series of floods in consecutive years where we had to close the dojo for a couple of weeks at a time. But you know, those things are out of your control, especially the COVID, that sort of stuff. But for an example, I went to teach a seminar at our Sydney dojo, and at that time they were at a community hall. Now they're at a full-time dojo, or a full-time permanent dojo. But at the time they were at a community hall, and the guy who usually came in to open up, he actually worked for that community hall. He didn't turn up, so I had spent an hour and a half, 2 hours battling Sydney Friday night traffic. If you've ever driven in Sydney on a Friday afternoon, Friday night, you know what I'm talking about. But the traffic is bloody awful. So went all that way to nothing. I mean, the people waiting outside, we couldn't do anything. So we ended up just going to a local restaurant and having a couple of wines. And actually, they probably learnt more from that experience, and you know, me talking about this or that, and then in the training hall. So anyway, maybe it worked out for the better. But another one is the condition of the dojo. So another one, huge one for me is how the dojo looks. So oftentimes at a school or community hall, the floors are dirty, they're grubby. There's chairs everywhere. There's stuff that kids left lying around. And then you're expected after you've trained to put everything back neatly. Even though when you turned up, it's dirty, there's stuff everywhere, you've got to put it back nice and neat. So, and if you're training on mats, oh man, what a pain. You've got to find somewhere to store them to start with. Hope nobody steals them. Hope the kids don't wreck them and rip them and tear them. And also you've got to put them down and pull them up after each class. That's hard. That's a pain. That if you're doing it by yourself, that can be half an hour, 45 minutes of work every day every time that you're putting them down. If you've got people there to help you, fantastic. But oftentimes you've got to get there early just to lay the mats down. However, when you have your own area, you just turn up, open the door, and away you go. So everything is clean. I wanted a place where I could turn up and know that it's clean and it's not used by anybody else. It's just us. Or we've got a cleaner that comes in twice a week. She does the mats, the toilets, the walls, the windows. It is a pleasure. I also wanted to come down and train whenever I wanted. So initially, when we moved into this place a few years ago, I was still competing, so I wanted to come down and do my own training. I wanted to do my specific karate training whenever I wanted to. 4 o'clock in the morning, 9 p.m. at night, whatever the time was, I wanted to be able to come and do it whenever I wanted. I also wanted to do private training, and even now I have my nieces and nephews that come over during the school holidays. They run around with my son, so they have a great time. And you just have to lock the door, and the kids are fine. Obviously, you still have to look after them. You have to keep an eye at them, but otherwise, you know, it's a big area, big open area, so that they can run around. The cost, obviously, very different. Community hall might cost you $100 a week. The permanent dojo might cost you $1,000 a week. But you know, if you're paying $1,000 a week, then you're more likely to get off your bum and get more students in to cover the costs. So it's obviously very different, but again, it depends on where you are and what you want out of the dojo. If you're stuck with 100 members at a local community hall and you're struggling to grow, you really need to sit down and figure out what you want. I look at different stages, like a 12 months or 1 or 3 or 5 and a 10-year plan. So this is where we're at the moment. So this was my 1, 3, 5, 10-year plan. So I've always had that sort of idea about where I wanted to be. But so in the initial 12 months, so when I found our current location, in that first 12 months, I wanted to grow the student base to cover the rent. In that 12 months, I just wanted to cover the rent because I was still working full-time. I still had my full-time job, and the dojo was part-time. But in that 12 months, it had to cover the cost of the rent. So I had to get out and really try to get more members. From year 1 to year 3, I wanted my student base to get up to around 350. And at that time, at 350, it would replace my wage at my full-time job. So I did have to take a huge pay cut for a few years, but that's where I'm at the moment. So in a few months, depending on when you're listening or watching this podcast, in a few months, I'm going to hit the 3-year mark from when I first decided, and my wife let me do karate full-time. So as my own full-time business. So that's where we're at the moment. So we're hitting around the 350 mark, and it's pretty much replaced my income that I was receiving in my previous job. So from 3 to 5 years is pretty much where we're at the moment. So we're just sort of moving to that way. I'd like to be able to grow my instructor base and be able to offer more classes and more class times. I can't do that. I can't offer more class times and more availability if I'm doing them all. I did another podcast a while ago about you need a team around you. You can't do it by yourself, and that's where we're sort of sitting at the moment. So we've got some future sensei coming through who eventually will be able to take some of the classes, and that's what we're looking at now. So that's what I'm gearing up for. So between 3 and 5 years, I want more instructors to take more classes. So the more class times available, the more people can come. The more people can come, the further we can expand the dojo, make it prettier, bigger, and those sorts of things. And I might be able to make a bit of profit as well. Teaching karate, touchy subject. We'll touch on that in a second. But anyway, let's get back to our 3 to 5 years. So that's the expectation that I'm looking at here. So I want more students and more instructors. At the moment, we are sitting on 180 square meters of trainable space, and we are looking at going to 250 square meters in a few weeks. So when I say trainable space, it means I can have 2 feet, 1 square meter actually training. When we came back from our COVID lockdown period, and we're very lucky in Brisbane, lucky in Australia, well, in certain parts of Australia, our lockdown was pretty small, about maybe 3 months or so, 4 months. When we came back to open the dojo, we could only have 1 person per 4 square meters, so that restricted the amount of people that we could have in my dojo at the same time. So that means we couldn't have parents inside. It's actually, it was a blessing, and it still is. And from then, even now, and continuing along, I won't have parents in our waiting area. So we don't have a waiting area any longer. I got rid of the waiting area, and now we have more training space. Initially, it was because of the COVID, but now the kids are much better focused. They're concentrating more. 1 second, let me just grab a quick sip. Oh, long black again, of course. Oh, actually, a bit fruity, this one. So with the parents, initially, I explained that the kids are better behaved, they're more focused, and it's definitely true because there's no outside noise. There's no parents aren't talking. There's no little Johnny's brother is not banging away on some car toy that he's got. There's no mobile phones going off. There's no video games being played. There's no tantrums from Johnny's little sister. So there's no outside noise. There's nothing to distract the kids from training, and it has been honestly fantastic. We do offer Zoom, a live video for Zoom, and each month we change the password just for security. But it is on every time there is a class on, whether it's kids or adults. There is a live video, live Zoom. I went out and purchased a Zoom, a URL. It's karatezoom.com. I know, I couldn't believe it was available. So if you've got something, I actually initially looked for AKA Zoom, as in Australian Karate Academy Zoom, but it was taken. So I just off chance put karatezoom.com. Boom, it was there. So whoop, cost me $12, and it's been fantastic. So go out and do that yourself. It's very easy. If I can do it, everybody can do it. So anyway, so we have the live Zoom, and it has worked out well. So every time now, whenever I tell somebody about it, they're initially, oh, just like dancing. Yes, just like dancing. So ballet, dancing don't allow parents inside. And I get it. I totally get it, because the kids are way more focused. There's nothing to distract them. It's all about karate. There's nowhere to go. If they can't look at their parents and pull a face because the parents aren't there. And also it gives us more training space. More training space means a better quality training experience. We can separate the class. In the kids' classes, we usually have 3 instructors plus junior leaders. So we're often putting into 3 groups. For example, white belts there, yellow belts here, orange belts here, all working on separate things, rather than everybody training together and white belts having to keep up with the green belts. We separate the class. Even with the adults, we separate beginners, intermediates, and advanced. Black belts doing this, green belts doing this, white belts doing this. So it's been fantastic, and as we keep growing, the dojo keeps expanding. We'll be able to offer more and more room for close training. Last night we had about 25 adults doing bojutsu, doing the bow. So fantastic. We couldn't have done it before. We knocked the wall down and bam, we've got all of this room. So in the next couple of weeks, we're expanding even further, offering another maybe 80 square meters of additional space. So everything is just expanding, and we're looking at between 3 to 5 years is where we're at. Back to that. So year 5 to year 10. Year 5 to year 10. This is when I want to start looking at buying a building. That's my dream. Buying a building, a full-time. Forever dojo, almost forever dojo, you can always sell it, but a forever dojo, like a forever home, that's really what I want. I want a forever dojo, so a standalone building. Here are a couple of things that I look for if I'm going to buy a building, or even if I'm looking for a new training space. 2 things, the 2 biggest things that I look for, and you may be a bit different, but for me, these are the 2 things I look for. 1, open space and parking. Open space and parking. I don't want any poles in the dojo. Not that I've got anything against Polish people, but the metal poles is what I'm talking about, not the people from Poland. I don't want any metal poles in my dojo. Yeah, you can put padding around it. It's not ideal, but you can put padding around it. But when there's padding around the metal pole, you can't use that space near the pole, because people get worried they're going to hit the pole. Of course, that's why you've got the padding, but you can't even use that space around it. So you are potentially losing 4 square meters of actual training space because you can't move past that pole. So I want a big open area, and again, I won't have parents waiting any longer. I'm lucky our parents sit in their car, or they go to the local cafe. Some even go to the pub across the road. Totally get it. Why wouldn't you on a Thursday afternoon while your kid's doing karate just sneak over for a quick pint? Totally get it. And you can watch your kids on Zoom on your phone. So, and we've been around for a long time. So, we've got a great reputation. So, people often share the Zoom to their family and family overseas. I know my wife's family in Korea, they watch my son train, which is cool. We wouldn't even think about that if we didn't lock the parents outside. If we didn't have to have the parents outside, we wouldn't even think about it. So But yeah, the other thing I'm looking at is parking. Sometimes if you're doing back-to-back classes, whether it's kids, adults, Commodore, whatever you're doing, you may need 50 parks. You've got 25 kids training and 25 kids coming in. So you need to look at, 50 odd car parks for that crossover. And if you're doing seminars or competitions at your dojo, you need a lot of parking. So they're the two biggest things I look for. In street parking, it's not enough. It's honestly not enough. You need your own parking, not one or two bays. It's got to be more than that. So that's why I look at for 5 to 10 years. It may happen in year 7. I might find the right dojo in year 7, or it could be year 10. I'm just looking for the best dojo. So that's my 1, 3, 5, 10-year plan. And also, if I'm looking for a dojo, looking for a permanent dojo, or my forever dojo, or just a second location that I want to open up, I want a nice area. You don't want to be next to a tradie who's loud, banging away on the tools. You want somewhere that's quiet and doesn't have after school hours like most dojo. You want a 9 to 5 or 8 till 4 neighbors. I did find the perfect spot. Absolutely perfect spot. Plenty of parking, open area, close to the CBD, affordable rent. But downside was it's actually next to an adult shop. So it's so close. So it's probably why it was so affordable. But I'm sure it'd be fine for many businesses, and a lot of people wouldn't care. But not a karate school, not a martial arts school. That's 60% kids and parents. So that's so close. But you can actually sit down and write out a 1, 3, 5 year, 10-year plan yourself. Modify it to however you want to. I see some dojo who are sitting around that 100 student mark that we were talking about before. They're not willing or they're not able to offer more class times. If you want to be professional, then you have to act like a professional and charge like a professional. There is a debate about should you charge money for karate? Should you charge money for martial arts? I've always been of the opinion, you definitely should charge money for martial arts, even if you're running a non-for-profit dojo. There are still costs. There's still rent. There's still GST. There's still tax that you've got to pay. Instructors that you have to pay yourself as well. If you think about the amount of money that you've invested in your own training, even if you're just a student, think about how much money you've paid for over the years for the class fees, the seminars, uniforms, equipment, travel, all of those sorts of things. Plus the hours that you've done studying karate, researching karate, practicing karate. I know a karate school owner who closed his local dojo. He was at a local hall, and he wasn't getting enough students. And then he complained that he could no longer afford the rent. But he also stated that you shouldn't charge money for karate classes. Yeah, what? So complaining that can't get enough members to cover the rent, but also you shouldn't charge money for teaching karate. Honestly, you can't have it both ways. So yeah, you can't have it both ways. You can't complain about not having enough students to cover the rent and then complain about those who charge money for rent for karate. It doesn't make any sense. So I understand that some want to do it as a hobby, and I get it. I totally understand that. My life has always revolved around karate. So all I'm talking about is my experience with karate. All of our holidays as kids, pretty much all of our holidays as kids revolved around karate, interstate competitions, seminars, all of those sorts of things. That's where we would have our family holiday, and they were great because we were still getting away as a family. Even now, I book my holidays around karate: Japan, Okinawa, Korea. All of these things revolve around karate. Even if I go to the US, I still go to a local dojo for tax purposes as well, but also just checking out to see what local karate clubs are doing. But yeah, even if you do run your dojo as a hobby, you can still operate it out of a permanent dojo. I've got friends who do this. Some are for non-for-profit, some do it just to cover the rent. If you're serious about karate, if you are serious about teaching quality karate to quality students, then you need to find a quality location. Invest some money and time into finding the right dojo. Thanks guys, I hope you enjoyed it. We'd love some feedback, and don't forget to check us out. We've got a YouTube channel, Facebook group, Facebook page. We've got our new Karate Over Coffee shop.com, so karateovercoffeeshop.com. We've got some shirts and mugs and stuff that you can help support us. But otherwise, if you do have suggestions for some podcasts, some episodes, let me know. We'd love to hear it. See you next time.